Google had lost over $100 billion in a day. And I use these event as a reference when talking with client to understand how risky it can be the use of generative tech in a business environment. And if Google can lose $100 billion in a day, how much can you lose? How much can anyone lose by using, this technology without the proper guidance? Now, Bard started on the wrong foot, and that's clear. It started on the wrong foot because it was under pressure. It started on the wrong foot because the problem of Google with AI, it's also, how to control the creation of an infinite number of, websites that are automatically generated without any human intervention. And also it was a failure because the company that has been leading the research and development in a lot of these fields, we discussed about the transformers that was introduced by Google, has been facing a strong competition from both OpenAI and Microsoft itself. And Microsoft has been very direct in looking at the opportunity of conquering back a few percentage point of the market share. Every single percentage point on that market share, it's worth $2 billion for Microsoft in advertising revenue. Whether they will be able to make these with a chatbot or not, it's still to be seen. But it is clear that Google arrived late with the introduction of a chatbot inside its own search, and with the wrong examples, because it was factually incorrect, and because it didn't add any source, which means it didn't provide any understanding of how Google is planning to enable a fair use of search. Search exists because of fair use, which means, in legal terms, that they can take my content as long as they bring me traffic. Otherwise, they cannot. It's like a newspaper. Can a newspaper use my story? Well, they can, as long as they are representing reality, for a large amount of people, and that's called newsmaking. And in search, in the US, there is the fair use of search, which means that they can use my content as long as they're bringing value back. And if they, don't add sources in the response of their chatbot, then, they fail in using properly the content. Now, Google Bard, we don't know much about it. We know that the Google scale, it's completely different than Microsoft scale in terms of search traffic. And therefore, we know that introducing something like Bard, even with a light version of the LaMDA model, as they anticipated, it possibly brings, a minus $30 billion on the search revenue of Google, because it dramatically increases the cost. And even Microsoft's CEO has been very direct in saying, well, search is the most remunerative software market, but everything has changed since we're using, heavily large language model in production. Now, this poses a few points that I think we need to focus on. First, there is an environmental problem, because if we start using a chatbot for doing what we do with search, then we are going to consume a lot of resources. And does that make sense? Well, it's very early for us to evaluate these, and we know that our grandparents have done a lot of disasters, but I think we have enough knowledge of how the environment is suffering that we should, also understand more correctly what does it mean to use something like Google Bard or Sydney in Microsoft Bing. The second aspect is that a dialogic experience for a human being, it's a very delicate experience. Delicate because we have less safeguards. We are less in control when we're talking with someone. And even if that someone is a robot, we might kind of lose some of the, awareness of what's happening. And considering the fact that the third biggest issue is that these large language models are, don't have the ability of being factually correct. This can create a scale of disinformation that it's terrible, and so these three aspects together should kind of make us think on how this technology should be used, and of course this is also makes us understand what Google is trying to think behind the scene before releasing these to the masses. Now, back to us. What is SEO in the context of Google Bard? And I think that a lot of people ask me these questions these days. And I think that SEO is terrific. It's possibly the best time for SEO because SEO has always been about building a bridge between, human knowledge or content, if you like, and a machine. And therefore, right now, we do see more than any other time or period of time, the pressing need for transferring learning to these models. Because if we want to communicate with the other, and if this communication is mediated by an automata like ChatGPT, then we want to make sure that, what we want to say, it's there and it's accessible to this machine so that it can be then transferred and distributed. And therefore, I've been particularly keen on working within context learning in the past months and try to understand, how these large language models behave and in a specific area of research which is called emergent behaviors. And emergent behaviors in large language models cannot be reproduced on smaller models. You can only see them on larger models. And enables different, abilities of these models that we can use for, if you allow me, do SEO on ChatGPT. And so I've been testing these in multiple occasions on UChat, the chatbot of u.com, as well as on ChatGPT, where by just asking the questions without providing the correct context, I get false statements. But if then I rephrase the questions and I add additional elements for the context, then I can correct the response. And in a way, this is SEO. And this is part of the AI pipeline, because we are supposed to train these machines because they are factually incorrect by design. And so we have to provide this data, and that's, if you want, a new form of SEO. And therefore, I've been working a lot on the different approaches, from the self-ask to the prompt chain, in any form of reasoning with these models that goes into chaining multiple prompts and tapping into external knowledge sources. And that's also key. We see these already in Bing, where the data of the context comes from the search results, and that's a new area of development for the SEO industry.